And this is Mount Whitney. This is the beast we're going to be talking about today. 14,500 feet, the highest point in the lower 48 states. It's intense. I'm going to let you in on a new route. And this is the route I first discovered back in the early 90s. And that's kind of what it's all about. You're going to experience a whole diversity of the Sierra that you don't get when you're just backpacking Mount Whitney for a day. Pictures really don't do it justice. You feel like you're someplace really special, and you are. My name is Chris Casado. I'm the co-founder of TSX Challenge. And today I'm hoping to introduce you to one of the best kept secrets in the Sierra. This is a route I first discovered when I was 14 years old. In fact, I wasn't the first person in my family to do this. Actually, my younger brother Denver did this when he was 10. My sister did this trip when she was 12. My mom did when she was 40. So this trip has had a pretty big impact, not just on me, but my entire family. And it's really gratifying to be able to share it with you guys here today. Just a little bit about myself. I first started backpacking this year back in the early 90s. And the very first ever backpacking trip I did was this exact same week-long trip across the Sierra to Mount Whitney, the one we're going to be talking about today. I did the John Muir Trail, which was that 200-mile route from Yosemite to Mount Whitney back in the late 90s. And then I've been hooked on the Sierra pretty much ever since. You know, I keep going back because the Sierra keeps giving back. But interestingly enough, the first person who introduced me to backpacking was a fifth grade teacher I had in Clovis, California. And that individual, his name is Mike Murphy, he has been taking students and community members on this inspirational hike across the Sierra every year since 1983. And I was one of those kids, one of those students. So he actually just stopped doing this past 2 years, but Mike helped me. And as I was kind of growing up, getting used to the outdoors, we talked about wouldn't it be cool if we take this unique experience we have in the Clovis Fresno area and open it up to touch more people. And that's how this experience, the TSX Challenge or Trans Sierra Extreme backpacking trip to Mount Whitney, was started. We're a little bit different. We take all different ages, all different skill sets, all different backgrounds, and we help them achieve big things like summiting the nation's highest peak, Mount Whitney. And so today we're going to cover what's so special about Mount Whitney, some of the routes that you can take there and how this one might be different and unique. We're also going to talk about who can complete this trip. Like, is it for you? Is it for your family, your friends? We'll talk about some gear and logistics. And then my hope is to spend most of the time just giving you a snapshot of what it's like to spend life on the trail. So you have a sense of kind of the adventure and the excitement and the challenges that are involved with a trip like this. For those of you who are new to Mount Whitney, like, what's so special about Mount Whitney? And I put a few of these 3 slides up here because if you've been to Mount Whitney, you'll recognize none of these mountains are Mount Whitney. Actually, they're all really impressive, big, beautiful mountains. But they all have something that's a little bit different. So on the far left, we have Pikes Peak. You pretty much drive to the top of Pikes Peak, Colorado. In the middle here, we have Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is a big, beautiful 14,000-foot peak in California. You need a little bit of technical experience to make it to the summit of Mount Shasta. On the right, we have Mount Rainier, 14,400 plus feet, one of the largest and the tallest in the contiguous U.S. But you definitely need some technical experience to make it to the top of Mount Rainier. Unfortunately, all these mountains are a little bit too short as well. So will the real Mount Whitney please stand up? And this is Mount Whitney. This is the beast we're going to be talking about today. 14,500 feet, the highest point in the lower 48 states. And if you look at this, you're going to see the last 2 miles of the trail are going to take you right here along the back of this ridge line. You're going to have these sheer 1,500 to 2,000 foot views between these peaks and spires until you make your way to the summit right here, Mount Whitney. And this is 14,500 feet. You'll be the highest point in the lower 48 states. And if I were to put myself kind of on the back edge of this ridgeline, it looks like this. Here you can kind of see those peaks and spires, and the trail literally cuts right along the back of this ridge. Now, I know we're all online right now. We can go home and start Googling it. We're going to get excited. Like, if you go Google it today, where's Mount Whitney? This is what Google's going to show you. And this dot could be you, maybe this summer, maybe it's summers to come. The route we're going to talk about approaching from the west is going to take the last 5 or 6 miles, and we're going to come along the backside of Guitar Lake, go up and down 11 long switchbacks until we finally make our way over here to Mount Whitney. Different perspective, where's Mount Whitney? It's actually pretty close to where I am. So I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So Whitney is just a stone throw away. We're super lucky to have something so close and so approachable right here in our own backyard. For those of you who might not be as familiar with kind of this location geography, here we have San Francisco Bay Area. If we kind of go right into the middle here, this is Yosemite National Park, definitely one of the most notable places in California. And then as we slip along kind of the eastern edge of the Sierra, we get to this oval down here, and this is Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. And if I were to zoom into that oval, it would look like kind of this right here. And this dot is where Mount Whitney sits in Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park. Now, there are a few different ways people approach Mount Whitney. The most notable way is to be called the main Whitney Trail. If you have friends who hike Mount Whitney and they've done this trail, that's incredible. This is like no small feat. This is the route that many people do when they're getting like a day permit or a 2-day permit. It's 11 miles straight up, 11 miles straight down. It's intense. If you've done this route, you're a champ. This is no small feat. There is like a permit system that's issued through a lottery system. It's sometimes difficult to get a permit on the days or the times you're looking for. It's hot, it's dry, it's crowded, and there's like 97 switchbacks. You kind of go from this point here and just work your way up the chute. So it's a pretty big achievement. But today, I'm going to let you in on kind of a few of the routes on how we can get to Mount Whitney. And there's a few different ways that I break it up. First of all, if you look here, you're going to notice right through the middle here, there's a big divot. And this divot is called the Kern Canyon. It's kind of like a rarely seen, rarely appreciated backcountry canyon. You have to hike about 20 or 30 miles from any direction just to get back there. You can almost think about like Yosemite, but with like no people. Now, in order to kind of get to Whitney Portal on Mount Whitney, you kind of have to cross that Kern Canyon in some form. So the first route is something called the Mineral Route. This goes out of the area called Mineral Peak, which is kind of the southern part of the Sierra. You go over something called Franklin Pass, drop into the Kern River Canyon, make your way up the Kern River Canyon, and then head over to the Mount Whitney group. The second route is probably the most notable route. This is the High Sierra Trail. And this is a route that you can find Facebook groups on. There's great blogs. There's great itineraries on how to make this happen. It's a very competitive route in order to get the permits for this on the trailhead, but it's a pretty big accomplishment. The highest point on the High Sierra Trail is just under 11,000 feet at Sequoia Gap. And then you drop into the Kern Canyon, make your way up to the Kern group, make your way up to Kern, then over to the Whitney group. And then typically both these routes will exit via Whitney Portal. But today, I'm going to let you in on a new route. And this is the route I first discovered back in the early 90s and Mike discovered in the early 80s. This is the route that is a little bit more off the grid, a little bit harder to get to. And we approach it from the north. This is the TSX route, as we call it. The highest point in our route is about 12,000 feet at Colby Pass. You'll be smack dab in the middle of the Sierra with granite kind of as far as the eye can see. We make a brief appearance in the Kern Canyon, make our way over to Mount Whitney. And then instead of exiting via Whitney Portal, I like to go where it's like a little more calm, a little more quiet, a little more like away from kind of the crowds. We exit to the south over this High Sierra Desert. And so if I were to put a different relief over this kind of map, it would look like this. And I've been backpacking up and down the Sierra. I've done some hikes in Europe, some hikes in India, some hikes in China. I keep coming back to this one because frankly, I think it blows them all away. The first couple of days, you're going to be knee deep in High Sierra streams. And I do mean knee deep, sometimes thigh or waist deep on certain years. You're going to go over snow-covered passage. This is Colby Pass at 12,000 feet. You'll drop into remote backcountry canyons. This is that Kern River Canyon we were talking about. And then you get to scale jagged granite cliffs. And so if you think about that quintessential High Sierra experience, a lot of people think of the John Muir Trail, where you have to go spend 3 weeks to hike 200 plus miles to see all the Sierra have to offer. Well, maybe you just have a week of vacation and you want to see all the variety and experiences in the Sierra. This route could be the perfect experience for you. From my perspective, though, while this route is really cool, what's more important is the amount of people that it's touched and how it can like really be a life-changing experience. It's changed my life, and I hope it can have a positive impact on you as well. When you think about a type of person who could backpack a trip like this, you might think of young lady on the left, young, strapping lady ready to go conquer the world. In reality, that's one type of person. But this gentleman right here, he's another type of person who backpacks with us. He was 69 years old. His wife actually put him on a trip with us and his best friend for their 70th birthday. But here they are camping at 13,500 feet on the backside of Mount Whitney, and there's no place he'd rather be. Or you could be 10 years old. And when you're 10 years old and you've hiked 55 miles across the Sierra, you're camping at the backside of Mount Whitney at 13,500 feet. That kid at that moment realizes he can do anything he puts his mind to. And that's kind of what it's all about. You could be a 33, 13, mother of one, mother of two, going back out there and you're reclaiming your health and fitness, whatever it might be. All different ages and all different skill sets can make this happen. As long as you kind of have one key ingredient, and that is you have to be motivated. Like I believe motivated people can do anything they put their mind to once they can make to succeed. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help motivate people reach those goals. Here's what a group of motivated people looks like back in the 2019. This is actually a group of fifth graders we had on the route. And my daughter is the second to the left there. Here they are, Colby Pass at 12,000 feet. And this is what a group of motivated people looked like back in the late, early 90s. And this is me on the far right here, my first time going across the Sierra. So for the rest of this talk, if you can just kind of keep in mind, are you motivated? Are you older or stronger than the fifth grader? Physically fit is important. But the three most important ingredients for having a successful trip are mentally tough, positive attitude, and be ready for a challenge. But for our trips, we make it as easy as possible for those with limited no experience to access the Sierra and summit Big Mountain like Mount Whitney. We take our permits. If you need a backpack, sleeping bag, or tent, we'll provide them for you. If you have your own, you're totally welcome to bring them. That's no problem. We do all the food and cooking, transportation to and from the trailhead, which is no small feat for a through hike like this. and guys with lots of love and experience in the Sierra. These are all multi-day trips, and they are not on the Mountaineers route. These are all hiking and backpacking trips, so they're not technical experiences. On this route here, if you're going to take your own backpack, that's welcome. Packs need to be at least 60-liter capacity to make it through a week across the Sierra. A sleeping bag needs to be rated at least 20 degrees Fahrenheit or better for kind of our winter or summer sleeping conditions at high elevation. And then footwear. Lots of people being trail runners. I'd say 70% of people hiking trail runners nowadays, maybe 30% in boots. Trail runners are more and more common because there's a lot of wet stream crossings on this route. And sometimes it's easier just to get used and comfortable to hiking through wet streams. With your trail runners, lots of mesh, water can come in, or it can go back out, and then you can keep on hiking without having to change your shoes and losing time. We do try and eat healthy on these trips. I'm out on the trail quite a bit, and I like to kind of take and eat what I enjoy. We're pretty good about accommodating great diets, vegetarian, other, allergies. We're pretty good at management. Everything's very modular. We can kind of build it as we go. Everyone on our trips is going to receive 3 items in addition to kind of your personal items. And this is a bear can that will be fully loaded with food, group food that will redistribute and rebalance every night. You'll get a snack bag, which is yours to kind of ration through the course of the trip. Fuel canister, one other small group item that will kind of spread out to share the weight. I would say that your packs will get lighter as we go. Fully loaded packs are typically weighed between 35 and 40 pounds at the outset. All the guys will take care of kind of the group gear and group equipment, first aid, etc. These will really be the only items that you need to add to your pack in addition to your personal items. Transportation, we get everyone into the Fresno Clovis area. We provide hotel accommodations for the trips we run through 57 hours for the first night and the final night. We're going to pick everyone up, get everyone to the trailhead. We're going to camp the first night at the trailhead and then hike 75 miles across the Sierra. Then we coordinate transportation back to our starting point. And this is after getting a team meal or a team shower down the Lone Pine. We'll bring you back about 4.5 hours drive back to the Fresno Clovis area where we have one final hotel for the evening before you can depart the next day or to wherever you might be going. These areas are pristine. I would say for the first 4 or 5 days, we don't see many people at all. It wouldn't be uncommon for us to see maybe 5 to 10 people at most over 4 to 5 days on this route. Sometimes less. We do practice the trace practices, which is kind of best practices out there. So we're going to pack out all our used toilet paper. Everything we bring in, we're going to pack out. We're also going to take extra care to keep kind of the streams, the land that we use, extra pristine. You can leave a trace to a whole other level if you'd like. We have a gentleman who's hiked with us quite a bit. He actually hikes with us in the Grand Canyon as well. He believes not just in leave a trace, but also in recycling and reuse. And so when he was with us in the Grand Canyon, he found this beautiful swimsuit and he decided he was going to bring it back up to the Sierra and he reused it as his swimsuit up there. So you can take that kind of as far as you like. We do care a lot about these areas that we've hiked on. We've hiked on them for a number of years and we treat them like a room. I would say one final thing is we do take large groups. The groups are typically 8 to 12 people, sometimes up to 15, including 2 guides. And everyone hikes at their own pace. So some people are faster hikers, some people are slower hikers. What we say is everyone hike at your own pace. This is a team effort. We're all going to get through it together. We're all there to work on this and reach this certain goal. But there's no pressure. So we're going to enjoy our time at the checkpoint, enjoy our time at the trail, but we're going to enjoy our time out there regardless. So the first couple of days, we're going to go about 10 to 11 miles for the first 2 days. The elevation profile here on the left. So the first day, we're going to camp at the trailhead, and then we're going to hike up to just over 9,000 feet, and then drop down to around 7,000 feet. We actually camped below the first night where we camped at the trailhead. That's about a 10 to 11 mile day. The second day, we're going to go another 10 to 11 miles up and camp at around 8,500 feet. And then the third day, we're going to make our way up towards Colby Lake and Colby Pass and camp around 10,500 feet. That third day is only about 5 or 6 miles. In total, we're typically targeting about 8 to 12 miles a day. Some days a little bit shorter. The longest day is the day we swim Mount Whitney. We do as a day hike up and back, and that's around 15 miles total. This is what kind of the relief looks like, and you can kind of see these first couple of days. I'm going to talk about the first couple of days here as we're going from our starting point towards Sugarloaf, Big Wet Meadow, and then Colby Lake. Altogether, it's about 25 miles plus or minus in total. So if you're early in the season, I would call this, you could be a pioneer. You could be the first ones cutting a path over the pass. And oftentimes, our groups are the first ones. If you're late in the season, it's a little more of a Club Med time of year, typically. Less water crossings, you can get through the trail quicker, less mosquitoes, less snow. So it has a different feel. No matter when you go, though, the first couple hours, you're going to be in dense foliage in the trees. In the first 3 hours, this is our first lunch spot. This is our view. And this is a view of the Great Western Divide. And we're going to be going over these mountains in just a couple days' time. There is a ton of water on this trip. Water keeps things cool. It brings out wildlife. It brings out wildflowers. If you're observant, you're going to see plenty of that on these routes. You're going to experience a whole diversity of the Sierra that you don't get when you're just backpacking Mount Whitney for a day. Here, you're going to see a lot of things that come and happen from different perspectives. So wild mushrooms, we found this perfect Super Mario Brother type mushroom. We were on the trail. Very rarely do we see bears, but occasionally we may see them, typically on day 2. We've never had a bear encounter in our camp, and we'd like to keep it that way. At the end of day 2, though, you're going to be hot, you're going to be tired, but eventually you're going to get to this point where you reach this aspen grove. And just above this aspen grove, you can kind of see something peeking out here. About 50 to 75 yards ahead, this is your view. And this is Big Wet Meadow in Kings Canyon National Park. Awesome, beautiful, rarely seen, rarely appreciated backcountry meadow. Pictures really don't do it justice how amazing it feels to reach this point. You feel like you're someplace really special, and you are. We've been at this meadow in all different conditions. Sometimes it's more wet than big. In fact, last year, there was a massive avalanche that took place and it was completely flooded. And we had a group of kids out there who were our pioneers for the year. In fact, I really take pride in taking all different ages and experience levels out there. This is my son on the left, wearing the orange hat. This is my daughter here down to the right. Here we are now as we're working our way up from Big Wet Meadow. The meadow is in our background. We're working to do something called Claire Meadow. And I actually named this meadow after my daughter. We can kind of do that as you kind of develop real passion and something for this trip. We have Claire Meadow, Birch Ridge, and Cecilia Peak. All 3 of these named after my kids here. There's lots of water on this trip. The water is, mandatory. You're going to get wet at some point. There's just lots of stream crossings. But headfirst is not optional. Highly encouraged. If you've never dived headfirst into a High Sierra Lake, it feels a little like this.
Thanks, ready?
Of course,
Yeah.
That water is probably like 34 degrees, but it feels amazing. And this is Colby Lake, probably one of the prettiest lakes in the entire Sierra. Beautiful lake. We try and get here. This is the 5 or 6 mile day. We try and get here early in the day so we have time to rest, relax, and enjoy it. This is a couple that hiked with us. They were actually 23 and 24 years old, former Marines, had just gotten out of the military, and this was their honeymoon. No place they'd rather be with 12 other people, but this is what they want to do. Well, this is my wife. This was a trip she did back with us when we first started in TSX. And in 2011, she backpacked across the Sierra with us. It was her first ever overnight backpacking trip, and she made it happen. The cool thing here is she's reading a book. We were both attached to our iPhones and Blackberries at the time, constantly working and hustling. Here, you're disconnected for an entire week. No internet, no email, no cell phone. There's no reception at all. And there's very few places you can do that nowadays that are so close to home, but so disconnected. But kind of this High Sierra round that we have is one of them. So that's kind of the first half in a nutshell. You're about 25 miles in, and we're at Colby Lake, which is about halfway to Mount Whitney. You're kind of getting used to the trip for the first couple of days. And I would say the next couple of days, once you get past that, the trail to Mount Whitney, there's some surprises. If we were to go over Colby Pass, which is at 12,000 feet, you're going to feel like you're on top of the world. And then that same day, we're going to drop about 4,000 feet all the way down to the Kern River. And you're like, what are we doing? The next day, we're going to work our way up towards Crabtree and have a couple days to camp at Crabtree. We use it as a base camp, which is kind of our camp just below Mount Whitney. Then we'll do an up and back summit to Mount Whitney. And then we're going to proceed. Even then, there's still some mileage to do as we exit kind of over the High Sierra Desert. Now, I say surprises. It's just like if they only knew, right? Here we are playing cards at Colby Lake. Everything's kind of hunky-dory. And the next day, this is your route. These guys have no idea what's in store for them. Now, the lake's around 10,400 feet. The pass is 12,000 feet. About halfway up is a meadow. The meadow looks like this in the dry year. And here we can see this little notch right here is the pass. On the wet year, it looks like this. So completely different experiences. And this, again, early in the season, late in the season. As you're hiking up the pass, looking back down towards the lake, this is what the view might look like on the dry year. And on the wet year, very different perspective. Now, if you've never hiked over a snow-covered 12,000 foot pass, it can be a thrilling experience. It can be a bit intimidating. We will have traction devices if that's the case. We provide these for you, either microcycles or inset crampons, depending on the conditions. We go very slow, keep everyone together as a group, lots of encouragement and teamwork together. But when you reach the top, it's an incredible feeling. There is beautiful views and beautiful vistas. Everyone's super pumped and excited. For many people, it's actually the highlight of the trip is crossing Colby Pass. You have an incredible view of the Kauias, which are to the south. And those kids that were playing cards, they're feeling good now. They're on the right path. So coming down Colby Pass, though, is a very different experience. On the dry year, you can hop, skip, and jump down. There's nice trails that come down. But on the wet year, you get to slide. And again, if you've never slid down the 12,000 foot pass, it feels a little bit like this.
There you go, Allie.
All right.
All right, you got a bump. Yeah, GoPro's good. There you go. Yeah, Allie.
Kevin, you there? Make sure you got your. Watch out for the poles.
Oh my god. You're healed in.
There you go.
It's a pretty fun experience if you've never done it. Not on all the trips, but some of the trips, the early ones especially. I have this shot. This is a picture of Deb. She was a retired school teacher from Santa Rosa. And this was her biggest fear. She knew this was going to have to happen. She was terrified of doing it, but she did it. And she was super proud of herself. And we captured this picture. I think it captures her emotion perfectly. She was both laughing and crying at the same time. Now, as we're coming down Colby Pass, this is what I call like down to music country. the whole Sierra just really opens up for you. This is really seeing really appreciated country as we make our way down the Kern River drainage. Sometimes we'll camp up on the ledge. We call it Chocolate Ridge, with a beautiful view into the Kern Canyon. There are lots of crossings on this route, lots of stream crossings as we make our way over towards Crabtree. Now, this trail is remote and rugged, and I can't really understate that. There are times when the trail is flooded and we'll be hiking through excess river as it takes up the trail. There are times where there's avalanche debris and you feel like you're hiking through a jungle over and under these giant aspens. Last year, we had one of the wettest winters on record in California, and the Kern River crossing, there is no bridge. And our very first team had the experience that looked a little like this. They took their time, they made their way across. This is the exception. This is an outlier. Most crossings are not like this, but we make them happen. We help regular people do incredible things. If you've ever crossed a high Sierra stream, it might feel a little bit like this. So I'll pause for a moment. You hopefully get a feel for it. She had a good form, 2 hands and 1 pole. I'm using her shoulders facing upstream, perpendicular to the flow of the water. I'd let your lead leg kind of come back a little bit with every step. Eventually, all of these trips, the High Sierra Trail, the Mineral Route, our route, they all went into the Kern River. With the Kern Canyon, we make our way up to Crabtree. And from Crabtree, we get this view. And this is Mount Whitney, actually. Here we're looking at Mount Whitney from the west. Same mountain I showed you at the very beginning, but just a different profile. Remember, those last 2 miles take you right here along the back of the ridgeline. Here's the summit of Mount Whitney. Here's another shot of the sunset, this beautiful sunset we had out there. And the next day, we're going to go and try and make our way to the summit. And we're going to get it early before sunup start. The adrenaline will be flowing as we make our way towards the mountain. We're going to come along, get to our lake. We're going to have a beautiful view of the Sequoias in the background. And as we make our way up these 11 long switchbacks on the backside of Mount Whitney, honestly, the views just keep getting better and better. You're going to have these incredible feelings as you're making your way. The switchbacks are just kind of chilled out of the backs of the mountain. They look a little bit like this. And eventually we'll make our way onto the ridgeline. And that ridgeline has an incredible view where you can see all the way across the Sierra. In fact, this is a morning view. From the afternoon, we were up there and we had an incredible view of the Great Western Divide. And this is what we just crossed over. Coy Pass is tucked back over here on this ridgeline. So this is Mount Whitney. And here we are. It's March 21st. We're on the top and we all have a goal. We have a vision. We're going to try and push ourselves to accomplish something. It's about being that 10-year-old kid and realizing you can do anything you put your mind to. Or if you're 55 years old, this is what you call your penthouse suite. And so you're going to be hanging here, camping at 13,500 feet for some trips on the backside of the mountain. And if I were to pan out for the evening, this is the view you would have from his campsite. Now, one cool thing, depending on the timing and what we're doing for Mount Whitney, sometimes we might summit in the morning, sometimes we might summit in the afternoon. It might be weather dependent. But like occasionally we have a group that can actually summit in the evening or even camp over there for the night. I've camped on Whitney a couple times, and this is a group who's making their way along the ridgeline in the late afternoon as they make their way to the summit. And when you get up there in the evening, all the day hikers have gone home. It's quiet, it's peaceful. You have the beautiful sunset, you have the Sequoias in the background. It's an incredible feeling just to have the space. Or you get up early in the morning and try and catch the sunrise. And if you can catch the summit for a sunrise, it's a beautiful view. There is nothing on the horizon from the top of Mount Whitney. You are the horizon. The colors are pretty amazing. When that sun comes up, you get up, that radiant heat feels really good. And if you're coming up in the morning, there'll be others there to greet you, and you're going to have that sense of accomplishment. Like you've worked hard to train for this. You've pushed yourself. It's about reaching that goal or spending time with that loved one, maybe your daughter, your son, your father, dad. This trail has had an incredibly positive impact on me and my family and our community. And I hope it can have an equally positive impact on you and your friends and family and give you that inspiration that can last a lifetime. This is the shortcut way down. I don't recommend it. In reality, like my goal here was simply to inspire you, to encourage you, and to challenge you, take on an experience like this. And I showed you lots of different ages and experience levels so you can do it. But the reality is, this is a really difficult trip. It's a challenge. TSX challenge is named challenge for a reason. It's intense, physically demanding. It's emotionally intense. It's mentally draining. All of these challenges are going to happen. And no matter how prepared you are, I can almost guarantee you're going to have a moment somewhere on this trip where you're going to have to dig deep and will yourself on. And that's kind of why we got there, right? Is to have these moments and to see what we're made of. And back in 2014, I had one of my moments. I was actually camping at Crabtree, but land before we summited Mount Whitney. And I got a text message from my wife. And she's like, "Hey, Chris, my water broke. We're headed to the summit." I'm like, dude, I had to make a phone call. There's a zero reception for 99% of this trail, with one exception, and that is the summit of Mount Whitney. So woke everyone up. We got over to the summit. I was able to call in about 30 minutes before she was delivering. And I was having one of my moments on the phone So the group was walking away. I took this picture of them as they were walking away, and I was literally on the phone while this was taking place back home. That was a special group for me. These are special kids. You've seen a few of them in these pictures here. This is that group on our final campsite. We camp at a high desert camp. It's a beautiful view of Mount Langley in the background. This is the only dry camp we have on this route. This is the sunset to the east, and this is the sunset to the west from the campsite. And honestly, there's no better place to close a trip like this. So thank you guys so much for your time. We're happy to provide as much information as possible so you guys can have a safe and enjoyable trip out there either this year or in years to come.